Hello and welcome to data analysis project using Python. In this project we will cover everything, from importing our data, then using different Python libraries, cleaning and transforming data, and then analyzing and exporting to different files. So basically you will be able to see some tasks that you may have working as a data analyst. So without further ado, let's get started. First, you can see that I'm using this Jupyter notebook. You can use different IDE, but this time we will be using Jupyter. This IDE is perfect for data analysis, so that's the reason why we are using that. So this is home page. As you can see, I have some files that I'm working on, but this time we will create a new one. To do that, let's click on this new. Let's click on this Python 3, and we will be able to create new notebook. Basically, in this notebook, we will be typing our code. First, let's change this name. If I click on this, I will be able to change my name. Let's call it Data Analysis Project. Press enter and we are able to change our name. Perfect. Now as you can see, we have this cell and in this cell we are going to be typing our code. So what we need to do first? First, we will be importing our file. For that purpose, we are going to be using Pandas library. So first we need to import Pandas library. So let's type import Pandas as PD. Okay, now that we completed that, let's proceed to importing our file. Let's run this code and this will allow us to import that library. If you have number here and you don't have any errors, basically this means that we successfully completed that. After we do that, now let's import our file. Basically my file is stored on my desktop. So let's see how can we import that. Let's type pd.read.csv and open parentheses. So here I'm gonna copy my file location. Let's paste it here. Instead of these, let's put like that. Okay, perfect. And now here I need to provide name of my file. It's called fact sales.csv. This is the file extension. Because we are importing CSV file, we need to type .csv. Now let's try to import this file if I run this code. And now as you can see, we successfully imported our file. Let me just add this keyword here because we don't want to see this warning. So let's type like this. If I run this, I will be able to see my file. Okay, perfect. Now let's assign this file to a variable. Basically, we will be calling that df. df stands for data frame. Data frame is basically our table, so we are using data frame for that purpose. So now, when we have our code, let's run this, and now we are able to see that we successfully executed that line of code. So let's display our table, basically data frame. So if I run this, I will be able to see our table. Now that we have that, we can do some analysis on this table. To do that, let's use info method. So type .info. If I do that, I will be able to see different metrics for each of these columns. As you can see, we have some table here. We have column. In this column, each row represents one of our columns that we have in our table. So we have order ID. Let me execute this df once again. So first is order ID, as you can see, and also we have order ID here. Also next one is product ID. We have product ID here. Okay, great. Now we have some informations about those columns. For example, in this column here, we have this number of non-null values. Also, we are able to see data type for that column. This object means that those are string values. So, even though those are numbers here, they are stored as string values. Now that we know that, we will be changing that later on. But for now, let's see what other values we have. For example, we can see that in this discount ID column, we have only around 6,000 non-null values, and also data type is float. Also, we could use some other function instead of this info. For example, let's type shape, but let me remove those. Now we are able to see total number of rows and also total number of columns in this data frame, basically in this table. So those are some important informations about this data frame, and this is our first analysis about this data set that we have. But now that we completed that, let's delete this. Just press D 2 times and we will be able to delete that cell. Now I would like to clean this data that we have here. First, I would like to change column names for all of these columns. So let's do that. I'm gonna scroll down a bit and in this cell I'm gonna type df.columns. This will allow us to see columns that we have in our table. Let's click run, and now we are able to see those columns here. So I will now copy a list of new column names and I will assign that back to this data set. So let me do that. I'm gonna paste it here, and those are new column names that we will have for our data set. Basically we have same number of columns. For example, instead of this order ID, I will have that in lowercase, and also I will have this underscore between those two words instead of that space. It will be the same for all of these. And now I'm gonna assign this to my data frame. So how can I do that? I will type df.columns equal to column names. What is column names? You will see now. Let me remove that from here and let's add another cell. I'm gonna place it here, and here I'm gonna use this column names variable. Let me copy this. I'm gonna paste it here, type equal, and now we will have a variable that will contain this list. So let's run this cell, click on run, and now let's assign those column names actually to our table. So let's do that. If I run this, and if I type df, click on run, I will be able to see new column names for each of these columns. Okay, perfect. Now we completed that first step. Let me just scroll up a bit and I will delete this. We don't need to see that. And also let's delete this one. Perfect. Now let me use head method. Let's go to this cell and type dot head. In this case you are able to see top 5 values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and last 4 values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I type only head, you will be able to see only top 5 values. So let's run this, and we are able to see top 5 values. Instead of that, if we provide number here, for example, we can provide 10, I will be able to see 10 values. Okay, great. Now this is interesting for us. Based on this, we will do some transformations. Let's see what we can change first. Let me put here, instead of 10, let's put 20, for example. Let's run this code. And now we are able to see that after these first 10 rows, we have some random values here. We need to clean our data set and to remove all of these. How can we do that? We will basically remove null values. As you can see, for example, in this customer ID, if we don't have any values, we will remove that row. So basically we will remove everything if we don't have value here. So let's do that. Let's scroll down. Let's type df dot, and for this purpose we're going to be using drop_na method. So let's type drop_na and let's open parentheses. And now we need to provide column based on which we would like to remove those rows. Basically this means that we will provide column, in this case customer ID, and Python will search through that column, and if it finds null values, it will remove that row. So let's type subset equal to, and let's provide customer ID. Customer ID. After subset, we need to provide one more argument here. So let's type comma, and we will type inplace equal true. Basically this means that we would like to save those changes to our data set, basically to our data frame. So if we omit this, those changes that we made will not be saved to our data frame. Now that we completed that, we need to do one more thing. We need to put this inside of square brackets. So let's do that. Let's put one square bracket here and one here. Okay, perfect. So let's run this code. If I run this, and I will be able to see if I run this head method. Let's check those values here. Now let's run that. And you will be able to see that we successfully removed all these null values. That's perfect. Now again, let's take a look at our dataset. For this task, I'm going to focus on this quantity column here. And as you can see, we have quantity values. As you can see, it's whole number. But for some reason, we have those decimal values here. So I would like to remove that. I don't need that in my dataset. So let's see how can we do that. Let's go to this cell here. And let's type df, open square brackets, and then open quotes. Inside of those quotes, I'm going to provide column name. So let's copy this quantity, Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V. If I do that, if I run this code, I will be able to see only that column. As you can see, we have those 0 values here, and also I would like to remove those. if we don't have any quantity, we don't need to see that information in our table. So let's see how can we do that. First, I'm gonna remove those decimal places, and then I'm gonna remove those zeros. To do that, let's use a round function. Open parentheses, and here inside we need to provide number of decimal places. If we put 2, for example, we will have 2 decimal places. If we put 0, we will have 0 decimal places. So we need that. And let's try to assign this back to our column. Equal to. Let's run this. Let's go to our table. Let's check if it works. As you can see, for some reason we still have those values. Now we need to use that info method. So let's use info. Let's run this. As you can see, this quantity column is float. So let's try to convert that to integer. Maybe that way we will be able to remove that decimal place. Let's copy this one. Paste it here. Now let's type as type. Open parentheses, quotes, and then type int for integer. Let's assign that back to this column. Equal to. If I run this, I will be able to see my data frame. Let's check now. And now we are able to see that we no longer have that decimal place. Okay, that's perfect. Now let's deal with those zeros. How can we do that? Basically, we will filter our data. To do that, let's use again our column. Let's use this column here. If I run this, I will be able to see values only in that column. And now what we would like to do? We would like to keep only values that are not 0. So how can we do that? We're gonna type equal 0. Basically, this condition means if those values here are equal 0. But this time we will use not equal to. For that purpose, I'm gonna use this sign here. This means not equal. So let's try to run this code. And now we are able to see true and false values. Basically, false values we have for those zeros that we have, and for these numbers above 0 we have true. So now this condition is completed, and now we just need to apply that to our data frame. For that purpose, let's type df, open square brackets, and then close square brackets. This way we will be able to see whole data frame. If I run this code, I will be able to see only rows which don't have 0 here in this quantity column. Now I need to save this. I'm gonna save that to df, to data frame basically, and if I run this code, we are able to see function successfully applied. Now let's check if actually that's the case. Let's, instead of head, let's use tail method. As you can probably guess, this method means that we would like to see last 20 values. So basically head means first 20 values, tail means last 20 values. And not just 20, if you put 10, it will be just last 10 values, for example. You can choose any number that you would like to see. Let's run this. And now we are able to see that we don't have any zeros here in quantity. Great, now we successfully also completed that task. Let's proceed to next one. I'm gonna remove that, I don't need to see that. And let's type df here. Okay, perfect. Now we are able to see our data frame. And here in our cell, we're gonna start working on our next task. So what we can change next? We can also change this total amount, for example. As you can see here, these total amounts represent basically sales amount. So we have some numbers here. As you can see, we have also this dollar sign, which means that we have currencies in this column. Let's see if actually that's the case. Let's type df.info. Info, open parentheses, run that code. Info, let me instead of 0 put O. Run again. And now let's check that total amount column. For this quantity, we have integer. Basically, we changed that. Also, if we check this total amount, we are able to see that this is object. Object, as I said, means string value. So basically, even if we have numbers here, those are basically string values. The reason for that is because we cannot store currencies here. In Python, we don't have that like we have in Excel, for example. So we will need to remove this from our data frame. And let's see how can we do that. I'm gonna scroll down. And let's copy that column, total amount, copy that, paste it here. So we are going to be using that column. Now what we need to provide to call only that one column. If you remember, first we need to type df, this is our data frame, then we need to open square brackets, and we need to open quotes. Let's close those quotes, and also square brackets. This way we are able to see this total amount column. Let's run this code. And now we are able to see that. Now, as I said, we need to remove this dollar sign. We can simply use strip method. Let's type str.strip. Basically, we need to provide this str because we are applying this method on this column. Every time you apply function on string values, you will need to provide this str. Let's open parentheses here. And now what we need to provide only one value here inside of these quotes. We will provide basically that value that we would like to remove. In this case, it's dollar sign. So let's copy that dollar sign. Let's paste it here. And now let's try to run this code. Let's click on run. And now we are able to see that we successfully removed all these dollar signs. Now let's check if we actually change it here. Let's run this. And now we are able to see that we still have those values here. What is the reason for that? The reason for that is simple. We didn't save those changes. So basically we just applied this method on this column, but we didn't save it. How we can do that? As I already did in previous cases, I will copy this, paste it here and type equal to. Basically we are making changes on this column here, and then we are saving that basically to this original column. If I run this code now, and if I check my data set, let's run this, we will be able to see that we successfully removed all these dollar signs. Now that we made all these changes, let me check what else we can do. Basically, let's say that we now completed all those changes on our table. And now what I would like to do, I would like to keep only certain columns. How can we do that? We will basically extract only certain columns and save that to our data frame. So let's see how can we do that. Let's scroll down here. Let's remove this info method and let's cut this. I'm gonna just paste it here. Okay, because we already completed that. And now let's see how can we extract those columns. So to do that, let's go to this cell here. And now let's start typing. First, I'm gonna type df. We already know that this is our data frame. And now if we call one column, we will be able to, for example, let's use this order ID. Let's say we need that information. And if I need one column, I will just provide that column and we are able to see those values. But now we would like to see more columns. You would guess that you need to add comma and basically second column. Let's copy that one, let's paste it here and let's try to extract two columns from that data frame. As you can see, we are getting error. We are just getting this key error, order ID and product ID. Basically, with this syntax, we are calling only one column, but we are providing two values. And now we need to provide basically a list of values to be able to extract those columns. So how can we do that? We need to add another square brackets. And let's close that here. And now this is our list basically. And basically we are extracting this list of columns. So let's run this code now. Now let's say we would like to see more columns. Not just those two. Let's say we would like to see customer ID. Also customer name. Customer name. And let's use quantity, for example. Quantity, and let's extract one more column, total amount. Those are columns that we are going to keep. So let's run this code. And now we are able to see this new data frame. But how we can save that data frame? Basically, we can assign this to this data frame df, and also we could create new data frame. For example, we could add another name, df1 for example. If we do that, we will be able to have new data frame, df1. If I run this, you will be able to see those values that we extracted. And also, if you run this df, we will be also able to see this old data frame. But let's see if I assign this to df. Let's remove this. Now let's assign this to this df. Let's run this code. And if I check this data frame that we have, we are able to see that now we only have those few columns that we extracted. Okay, that's perfect. Now we have one more step. What we need to do is to extract data to CSV file. To do that, we will be using toCSV method. So let's go to this cell. Let's type df, basically for our data frame. And let's use that toCSV method. let's open quotes, and inside of these quotes we will need to provide location. Let's type desktop, and then let's provide new file name. In this case, let's call it, for example, sales new file .csv, and now I will provide another value, comma, index equal false. So basically what this argument means, if you take a look at this data frame that we have, as you can see we have our columns, and also we have those index values here, but usually you don't need to save those indexes in your table, so that is why we need to provide this value, index equals false. If we, for example, omit this, basically we will be able to save that data frame, but also we will have that index. If we provide this, we will remove that index. So let's click on this, let's run this code, and we have some error. Let's see what is the case here. Basically I need to provide proper location, so let me copy this location that I have here. I cannot provide only desktop. I'm gonna copy this one. Let's copy that instead of desktop. Now this will be different in your case. For example, you will have different location name because of this. My computer is called like this, but you will have some other name, so you will check that for yourself. Now let's try to execute this code one more time. As you can see, we don't have any errors, and now we should have file on our desktop. But now let's check if actually we exported successfully that. How can we check that? We will be importing that file that we created. So this way we will only copy this, paste it here, and let's remove this index equal false. Now we have this location. What we need to do, we need to use pd.readcsv method. This will allow us to read this file here. Now if I run this code, we will be able to see our file that we saved successfully. Now let me check, for example, if I remove this index equal false, let's see what will happen next time. If I run this code one more time, we will save that file again. And now let's run this code. You will be able to see that we will have index column in front of this order ID. Let's run this. And as you can see, we have that index column. So that's the reason why you need to provide index equal false. Index equal false. If you do that one more time, run. Basically we will just overwrite that file. So let's run this one more time, and now we are able to see that we don't have that index anymore. With this export part completed, we are done with this project. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.